Okay, I would like to call to order the meeting of the Oklahoma Space Industry Development Authority Board. All right. Thank you all for being here. And the first thing we would like to do is just have our guests please stand and introduce yourselves. We'd appreciate that.
Jim Bridenstine with the Artemis Group.
Jason Wallace from Phase 4.
Thank you.
John Whitaker from OU. Gabe Sherman from Artemis Group.
Jose Gonzalez, Pat.
Thank you.
Soldier Space Defense Command Resources.
Great. Thank you very much. We're happy to have you all here today. And just to confirm that this meeting is being conducted in compliance with the Open Meeting Act required in Oklahoma. And we would like to record our roll. Would you please do that, JW?
Absolutely. Ms. Gary.
Here.
Mr. Gillette.
Here.
Mr. Schultz.
Here.
Chairwoman Rolls.
Here.
Mr. Henry.
Present.
Mr. Siegfried. And Mr. Howard.
All right. Thank you. We have a quorum established. So our next action, Deidre, would be approval of the minutes.
Okay, the minutes are in the binder and had been sent out in advance. Does anybody have any questions? If not, I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Could you please take the vote?
Ms. Gary.
Aye.
Mr. Gillette.
Yes.
Mr. Schultz.
Aye.
Chairwoman Rolls.
Aye.
And Mr. Henry.
Yes.
Thank you. And Deidre, you have the next item.
Okay, I don't have anything for December. That was several months back, and we had just a small edit to it. It was just a transposition of numbers that were on it, but it is correct now. So I make a motion to approve the December minutes.
Or treasurer's report.
Or treasure, I'm sorry, December's treasurer report. I'd like to make a motion to approve that for December.
You're making it?
Yeah.
Second.
All right.
All right. Ms. Gary.
Aye.
Mr. Gillette.
Aye.
And Mr. Schultz.
Aye.
Chairwoman Rolls.
Aye.
And Mr. Henry.
Yes.
All right, and then for March and April, I just have a few questions. I know that this has been on here for a while. I just want to, we haven't talked about some of these big ticket items, and I just wanted to get it on the record. Can you describe what the RVA payments are?
RVA is Robinson Aviation. That's our air traffic controllers.
Okay, and then the bill for Tomahawk, what was Tomahawk?
Oh, that's the demolition. Yeah, that's the emergency demolition on the old warehouse building, the Janesville building.
Awesome. And then JB Solutions, that's a recurring one. Oh, that's you guys. And then Synergy?
Synergy is the engineering firm that we've hired
Oh,
for our water and wastewater projects.
Okay, awesome. If, with all that cleared up, I would like to make a motion to, does anybody have any questions? Anybody else have questions about it? I'd like to make a motion to approve the treasurer's reports for March and April.
Second.
All right. Ms. Gary.
Aye.
Mr. Gillette.
Aye.
Mr. Schultz.
Aye.
Ms. Rolls.
Aye.
And Mr. Henry.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much for clarifying those.
Yes. All right. Thank you very much. We are going to just switch up the agenda a little bit, and we are going to move item 7 up now. So that would be a presentation by the Artemis Group.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Everybody can hear me? This mic is working just fine? All right. Well, we have some special guests here today from a company called Phase 4, which is headquartered out in California, but they're doing some really impressive work that it will be transformational for the nation, in my view. And I'll just give a quick scenario why this is so important to the state of Oklahoma. When we think about the history of spaceflight and all of the activities that happen in space from national security and civil space, the history is we used to build very exquisite multi-billion-dollar satellites, and we would build them one at a time and maybe had a couple dozen satellites in orbit. That created a situation where our satellites were easily targetable by the enemy. And so we've seen capabilities develop where countries around the globe are launching anti-satellite missiles. They're doing co-orbital anti-satellite satellites, in other words, a satellite that can kill another satellite, and other technologies like jamming, spoofing, hacking, dazzling, which is laser energy being used to either confuse or even destroy a satellite. Well, with all of these proliferated technologies that are making space more and more contested, the United States government, during my time on the House of Representatives Strategic Forces Subcommittee of the Armed Services Committee, we went all in on distributing the architecture. So instead of a number of very exquisite multi-billion-dollar satellites, we're going to have thousands of satellites in low Earth orbit, and these satellites are going to be networked together, and we're going to get even more capability than we can get with the big satellites. So small satellites, thousands of them networked together, and now we're getting to the point where we're talking about tens of thousands of satellites in the not too distant future. All of these satellites need propulsion for a number of reasons. Number one, you need to maintain your orbit. Number two, you got to get out of the way of debris when you're in space. And number three, if necessary, if you have to maneuver to get out of the way of a threat, you've got to be able to maneuver to get out of the way of a threat. So there are new technologies that the US government has turned to ultimately to solve this problem in space. And they call it sustained maneuver or dynamic space operations, which historically has not been the case. Here's the thing. A lot of this propulsion technology is chemical for high energy or electric for high efficiency. And these technologies on the electric side are dependent on really two fuels, xenon and krypton. And xenon and krypton are extremely expensive. We're talking about $20,000 per kilogram, extremely expensive, which is really bad for the U.S. government. When your fuel is more expensive than the satellites you're launching, that's a problem. And by the way, when we buy that fuel, we're buying it from Russia and China, which is another big problem. So not only is it super expensive, it's also, and a lot of these propulsion technologies are designed to counter the capabilities of China and Russia, and yet we're dependent on them for the very fuel of the constellations that we're launching. These are big challenges that need to be overcome. And there's a company called Phase 4 that is here today that is solving that challenge with a new type of propulsion. It's not the traditional Hall thruster, and we can talk about that technology if you're interested, but it's radio frequency electric propulsion, which means we can use non-traditional fuels. We're not dependent on xenon and krypton anymore. And one of the fuels that is the most efficient and every bit as good as the other fuels is iodine. And they have a very unique technology that enables us to use iodine for propulsion. And there is one place that iodine comes from in the United States, and it's Oklahoma. So they are here to look at Oklahoma as a place to source iodine. It comes out of natural gas wells and oil wells, but it's very inexpensive. In most cases, it's thrown away because it is so inexpensive. In some cases, it's used for the medical community or health products or makeup, things like that. But when it's used, it's in very small amounts. To do what I think we're contemplating doing here, we're going to need to produce it in larger amounts, and we're going to need to refine it into more pure forms. And I think that can create a great opportunity for the state of Oklahoma. So think of this as an in-space propulsion company that would have, I think, ties to Oklahoma. And those ties to Oklahoma would not just be on the iodine side for the fuel. I think it would also be when we start getting into different types of fuels for different types of things, they might be interested in a hypergolic testing facility, for example. And also manufacturing, because if you're going to be testing, you might want to manufacture in the same location where you're testing. So all of these things, I think, are on the table for this very unique company. And I'd like to introduce them today. We've got two people here. Jason Wallace is the president of Government Systems, and Umair Siddiqui is the chief technology officer and president of Phase 4. So I don't know if one of the two of you would like to take the mic and share a few words.
So good afternoon, and thank you for having us. My name is Maher Siddiqui, Chief Technology Officer, President of Phase 4. Just a little bit of history of the company, who we are, why we're doing what we're doing, and why Oklahoma could be very, very relevant to our future. So as Jim mentioned, every satellite in space needs to have an engine so they can move around, and this is becoming more and more critical as the U.S. is having more and more adversaries in space. And as Jim mentioned, the traditional propulsion technology set is physically dependent on propellants like xenon and krypton. They can't operate with other kinds of propellants. They're not robust to other kinds of propellants. It's like putting water in your gas tank. The engine doesn't work. Unfortunately, these propellants that have a rich history of aerospace heritage, the vast majority of that supply comes from Ukraine, Russia, and China. Over the last couple of years, what we've seen is the price spike from the $10,000 a kilogram to at times upwards of $40,000 a kilogram. And this wasn't actually a nefarious act. This was just market dynamics of the pricing of xenon. And so to have our propellant supply chain controlled by conflict areas and in adversarial countries, especially as the Department of Defense is trying to launch more and more satellites dependent on this propellant supply chain, poses a threat to what the DoD is trying to do in space. At Phase 4, my own background and the background of other folks at the company comes from the world of the core technology and physics behind in-space propulsion, but at a totally different area of the field. So in our field, we use a phase of matter called plasmas for industrial manufacturing and fusion, and we've developed technologies that are robust to a wide variety of gases and propellants. So our technology can be used to manipulate and accelerate whatever. And so we've been focusing on bringing this technology into the world of propulsion to be able to unlock how engines can leverage next generation propellants. The nice thing about iodine is it is a very, very high performance target propellant. It's very, very dense, and it's very, very low cost. Critically for the application of in-space propulsion, there's a very significant domestic supply in the United States. In fact, all of it's in Oklahoma. The state of Oklahoma is the third largest producer of iodine in the world. The other ones are in other countries and so on. And so with Phase 4's technology, if we can use iodine as a replacement for xenon and krypton and actually enable defense constellations to use iodine as their primary propellant source, then not only have we brought the entire supply chain to the U.S., we've also dramatically lowered the cost, and we've enabled the Department of Defense to unlock new ways they can move in space, as well as do it much more cheaply at much higher throughput and much higher volumes. And so this is why, obviously, Jim being on our board has been very helpful. It actually was a coincidence that Jim was on our board and we discovered that Oklahoma was the #1 supplier of iodine in the United States. So it seems like a bunch of stars are aligning to see if we can potentially explore Oklahoma to expand our footprint, certainly invest in development of iodine-based propulsion systems, potentially work with universities to get a strong pipeline of students into engineering professions, and then potentially even expand manufacturing. So that's a total summary of what we're doing at Phase 4. Thank you.
Excellent. And how long has Phase 4 been in business?
So we were founded in April of 2015. Okay. We really kicked off with actually a DARPA contract in the beginning of 2016. Mm-hmm. We have, in our history, delivered 13 flight units to customers. 10 have been launched into space. These are all commercial satellite customers. Actually, very proudly, some of the first engines we delivered were delivered to customers who ended up taking key images of the battlefield when Russia invaded Ukraine. And we never knew that our technology was going to be used that way. Mm-hmm. So there was an interesting story where it was the peak of COVID and there was a lot of stress and so on. And we were getting our first engines out on our production line. And then just about a year later, we saw images on the news. And those were our customers taking images, positioning the satellites with our engines. Mm-hmm. Since then, we've continued to ramp up production. But we've also brought on a fair amount of new government programs to invest in the development of our technology, not just with iodine, but also other next generation propellants to enable new defense missions in space.
Excellent.
You're currently using the iodine propellant now.
So we have demonstrated that our system can operate with iodine. We've measured the performance of the system, but the customer product hasn't been delivered yet with an iodine system. And so that's the investment that we want to make, leveraging potentially resources here.
Yeah. It's impressive that you have hardware flying and that it is producing images and
Yeah.
doing what you intended it to do.
Yeah,
So,
it's very gratifying
yes. I'm
to
sure.
be able to contribute that way.
Mhm. And these new technologies are pretty exciting, I think, for the overall space industry.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely agree.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I mean, why did we try iodine?
So that's a great question. Why did we, or why did how?
Well,
why
I mean,
haven't
I
we?
know they're close
Yeah.
on the table.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Yeah, no,
It
that's
just
a.
seems random.
It does seem
It's like,
random.
I don't know. Let's try a fly wing or whatever.
So no, it's a great question. I mean, Jason and I joke. So what else can we try? I mean, we've tried a lot of different. We joke maybe we'll try Red Bull and get a sponsorship from Red Bull.
Yeah.
The electric propulsion community, the heritage propellant is xenon. And there's a couple of reasons why. First of all, xenon is compatible with the traditional technology, the Hall effect thruster. And xenon is a very heavy and stable element. It stores very densely, and as a propellant, it performs very well. When the scientists get into it, they don't think about the supply chain of where xenon comes from.
Right.
They just think about the chemistry of it. And so people have been looking for the alternative to xenon. So what can we get that performs similarly to xenon, but maybe isn't sourced from Russia, Ukraine, China, and maybe isn't as expensive? And iodine is right next to xenon on the periodic table. And so it's right there. So NASA has actually proven that iodine performs the same as xenon. Phase 4 then got a contract to prove the same thing in our technology that performs the same as xenon. And there's a series of other benefits to it. It's 5% the cost. It's roughly 3 times as dense, so you can store more in your satellite. And so the value to the end space customer is very, very high. But we need a little bit more development to make sure the flight product gets developed. And then these customers are looking to produce and launch satellites in the hundreds at a time. And so we need to ensure that there's a robust iodine supply chain that can take over. And,
That was my next question.
Yeah.
So it's relatively cheap.
Yes.
And we know Oklahoma has a lot of it, but I mean, do we know how much?
Yeah. Our whole morning conversation was discussed around this, and we're going to actually we're talking to one of the major iodine suppliers later this afternoon to understand what their understanding is of the total supply of iodine.
Because I know, we've been working on another project with the salt mine near here. And they called it the Saudi Arabia of salt.
Yeah.
But I noticed that we don't mine iodine.
It's a byproduct of from some natural gas wells.
So
Yeah.
not much natural gas are in there. Can we assume that you can have a large salt mine without iodine in it?
Potentially. I'm not the geologist or the geoscientist, but we're going to be talking to some experts later today.
You know what I'm talking about.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much
Of
for
course.
the information.
All right, just a couple other quick
Yes.
updates here. So back in April, many of you guys know we were out at Space Symposium. State of Oklahoma had an incredible presence out there, kind of led by OSIDA. And what we had was about probably 20, 25 core meetings with a number of different space companies out there that were kind of picked and targeted based on opportunities here in the state of Oklahoma. We also held an Oklahoma breakfast out there where we invited a number of space stakeholders to come participate. We had the lieutenant governor on hand for multiple days. And so that was very well attended. Space Symposium actually told us that's the most well-attended salon breakfast they've had in the history of Symposium. We filled the room and had a chance to really shine the light on Oklahoma and what our capabilities are. But those conferences are really nice whenever you're there. The question is what happens afterwards and what type of business can you drive or opportunities can you drive? And so this week alone, this is Phase 4 is the second of 3 space companies that'll be here this week. Tomorrow, up at the state capitol, you'll have Firefly's Blue Ghost lander set up on the steps of the Capitol. Firefly will be meeting with legislators about a number of different capabilities that they're exploring inside of the state of Oklahoma. Once you get past Firefly, we have 2 more visits from pretty high-profile space companies coming here in May. We'll get you guys read in. Chairwoman, I know you're read in a little bit on some of those dates. Treasurer, I know that you want to participate in some of those, and so we'll make sure and get you on the calendar as well. And we would just, again, welcome OSIDA's presence at all of those meetings. But the goal here is to drive real action. And so Jim mentioned hypergolic test facilities. We believe that as we met with companies at Space Symposium over and over and over again, the need for hypergolic testing and the shortage of facilities and the wait times to get into those test facilities just driven home to us over and over and over again. And whenever you think about in-space propulsion, specifically in the scenarios that Jim described, and there are some real opportunities for our state to lean into investing in that type of infrastructure to create almost a testing center of excellence here in the state of Oklahoma that would not only drive near-term investment in the state from space companies, but if you're testing, as I said earlier, if you're testing, then you're likely to eventually move to manufacturing here as well. So we think that's a core component to our strategy moving forward. Another really exciting thing that came out of Space Symposium and some of the visits that we'll have later this month will speak directly to this is the engagement of the Choctaw Range in space activities. We have a really unique capability down in southeastern Oklahoma. Many of you guys are familiar with Choctaw's Range, but from an entry, descent, and landing standpoint, we have a real opportunity to begin returning spacecraft to the state of Oklahoma through that range. And eventually, don't think of space shuttles or planes landing. Think of capsules that have been on orbit doing specific experiments that are now returning with the results of those experiments. And so we could receive those potentially on that range down in the Choctaw Nation. And while we need a large range initially for those entry, descent, landing capabilities to be proven, that footprint will shrink over time as as companies prove that they can land where they say they're going to land, which will open up the door to entry, descent, and landing out at Burns Flat as well. And so we look at the state of Oklahoma through the strategy that we've kind of laid out. If we can have companies that are doing the types of experiments we've discussed in microgravity that have a presence in Oklahoma, we have the ability to bring those experiments back to the state of Oklahoma, and then we have centers of excellence designed around the idea of actually moving microgravity experiments to production and manufacturing in the state of Oklahoma. And we think it's a real win for our state. And so a lot of those discussions are ongoing, and we're making progress, we believe, every month on those types of activities. So a lot of really good things. I know Craig probably is going to update you more on that. And he was at just about every meeting. And I don't think we wore Craig out as much as the Lieutenant Governor. We had him there, and for 2 days we wore that guy out. But it was really, really good for the state of Oklahoma. So thank you guys for your support on that. Okay.
Absolutely. And any questions for Gabe?
Not sure you can wear Governor Pinnell out.
I know. We tried our best. Yeah. So, but thank you all.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you very much for that. Just a statement, these are really important strategic long-term opportunities for the state, and these types of investments and the work that is being done now to lay a foundation people in 50 years will look back and be very thankful that all of this was occurring. So thank you very much for your hard work. Okay, we will move on to the next agenda item, and that would be the Executive Director and Facility Report.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate the presentation. I think it's so exciting. And some of our previous board members used to remark that we're talking about fixing water tanks and buying batwing mowers, and it's really exciting to talk space at the OSIDA meetings. And so it's great that our former chair is here as well, Mr. Wedekamp. General Wedekamp, thank you for this opportunity. I want to talk a little bit about what I've done this last couple of weeks. The legislature is closing toward the end of their session. It's down to budget time. Senator, you remember those days? This is when you can cast those out. So I was been called to the Capitol a couple of times to speak to both the House subcommittee on appropriations for transportation, which is ours, and the Senate as well, to talk about our ARPA and our PREP projects and give them an update. So I'll fly over what I basically shared with both of those committees. I think I sent you a newspaper article that was in the Journal Record that kind of touched on the House when the Senate went somewhat similar. They didn't ask specifically about ARPA, but there's some challenges there. You guys can stick around and talk and listen to facilities updates if you want. Absolutely. Hey, we thank you for your time, gentlemen. Thank you for being here. Welcome to Oklahoma. Certainly just a refresher, the 2.5 million for our wastewater, $1.5 million for our water system, and then a $250,000 for our high-speed internet. And Synergy is the engineering firm that we've hired out of Tulsa that's putting together the scope of work on this project. They were getting close to the 90% percentile of the scope of work that they're going to be doing on this. As we were visiting with them probably about 2 months ago, we started talking about these tanks, and it's been a while since these tanks were inspected. So they hired a firm to come and do interior inspections. Talking about unmanned aircraft and things of that nature, they dropped a water drone in both of these tanks, which went and inspected all the interior of the tanks. So part of our project with these is going to be shoring these facilities up. The one on the left is clearly you can see a 1.9 million gallon freshwater tank. People confuse that with a fuel tank when they pull up on our facility and think that's fuel. It's water. And the other is a tall water tower that gives us the hydrostatic pressure throughout the park that gives us water pressure. And I'll talk about this system a little bit later on as well. But those are going to be part of the project. So we've got $4 million total to spend on the project. We anticipate, and we got mighty close as we at the 60% version of what the scope of work is going to look like of spending all that. It's now looking like it's going to take up all of the $4 million at least. And probably we'll have to dip into some prep money to be able to finish the project, to be able to finish this project. And that's going to make the legislature happy because they didn't want to have any money left over of ARPA that they have to find some way to return back to the federal government. So as we see it right now, we should have no problem spending that up and actually have no problem getting that spent up before the December 31st, 2026 deadline for that. And of course, that's a picture of the lagoon system we have there now, and that's some of the work that needs to be done, some adding riprap and doing some attenuation on some of those lagoon ponds. This is the where Synergy is on the project. We expect to meet them probably this month, maybe the 1st of June, to talk about the final review for the issue for construction. We expect hopefully in June to be able to bid the project out. And that's where the real money will be spent. The engineers are spending about 10% of that figure, doing all the studies and doing the putting together the scope of work. But where the money really gets spent is when we hire the contractors to bake the cake of the recipe that they are putting together. The high-speed internet, that's the other portion that we're working. We're very close, and we've approved the contracts to put into place. We're waiting for one of the companies now to get certified and registered on the state website so that we can begin the finance portion of that. So start implementing some of the projects and things that we've already got secured. We've got fiber already to the main office. And then we'll put fiber out to a number of other buildings, including the tower and some of the hangars, if not all the hangars. And then we're going to try to do, since it's such a broad scope, we've got 11 miles of fence, and there's some gates that are really far away, and it's just too costly to put fiber out there. We're looking at wireless bridges to be able to put at some of these gates. I may have a picture here. I don't know if I put it on this presentation or not. Some proximity access, so there'll be a camera, and you'll have each person that has access to the airport will have their own card, such that when they approach that gate and flash that card, we know that Craig Smith went into the north gate at 4:33 p.m. on Thursday the 7th, or whatever it may be. So we'll know who gains access to the airport and such. That's what we've expended, encumbered. That's what we have remaining. The companies that we've dealt with. This is the prep project. If you'll remember, Delta Aerospace was our engineer of record that we selected about 2 years ago with the help of ODAA. They were going to do the entire project. Some of the figures they came back with that ODAA reviewed. ODA had some concerns. They wanted to look out at some other engineering firms to look at the capabilities they might be able to bring to the table. We decided to leave the pavement project with Delta. And so they continued to do the engineering and research on that portion of it while we hired these other engineers that are going to do the electrical portion, a water. What's the phrase I'm looking for here? flood zone plant management survey, and some hangar development that we'd like to do as well. So some of those other engineers are going to be looking into that. We got a report back from Delta about 3 weeks ago that tells us right now the estimate for the pavement portion, which is the joint seals, spall repair, things of that nature, is about 13 million. That's about twice what I had anticipated spending on the pavement portion of the project. So that 27.5 million of prep money is looking like it's going to get spent really, really fast. We're going to probably have to make some prioritization on where we spend the pavement portion of that so that we can make sure that we have monies for the electronics portion, which we haven't even seen yet, but we're putting LEDs in and we're running new wiring up and down both sides of the runway. So that figure could be pretty tall. So we're still waiting to see what that looks like. But what we hope to do is run both projects concurrently so that we close the runway one time, pavement gets repaired while lighting gets improved, and then we'll look at doing the taxiways and the areas in front of the hangars and some of the apron areas and some of the other work. And then, of course, building development, building demolishing, and security enhancements. We'll have to buy equipment, new gates, and new equipment for some of the security access as well. That's the picture I was looking for. That's not what it looks like, but that's kind of what it looks like. That's clearly a keypad, but what ours will be a something where you have a card that you wave in front of it. This is what pavement work looks like. That's how deep our runways are. I think some of you have probably seen these slides before, but anybody online watching, our runways and aprons aren't 4 feet thick. They're about 18 to 20 inches is what our engineers show, and so that's a sampling of one of the panels when it's been removed. I think that's on the apron or maybe on the secondary runway. Everything in red and orange, actually red, orange, and blue are all projects as part of this rehab, this pavement rehab. So you can start to see where 13 million is going to be spent pretty rapidly. So the main runway, we've done a lot of work on the main runway in the past using the JUA money we get from the Air Force, and we get 1.6 million a year. Mr. Treasurer, you've seen where a good portion of that goes away each month when paying toward the air traffic controllers and utilities. So whatever is remaining is what we utilize for pavement repairs in the past. What we've had to do is been able to save that money up over 3 or 4 years to be able to do $1.5 million project or something along those lines. This year, we will knock out a whole bunch. So the main runway has gotten attention with some joint seal and some spall repair, but all those taxiways have probably not been touched in probably 20, maybe 30 years. Certainly the main apron, the big chunk of orange right there on the left center of the screen has probably not been touched since the 50s and 60s. So we're going to spend a whole lot of money doing a whole lot of things on the site. That's what spall repair looks like. They chip it out, they jackhammer it out, and they put some filler in it. This is the same kind of filler that they use at Tinker Air Force Base. Very hard. Matter of fact, if you take that out from a patch, it'll pull up concrete with it. It's very hard, very, very sticky, and it cures really quickly. Everything in blue will be the electronics portion, the lighting portion that we look to touch on. And that's an example. We've got the old LEDs on site. We're going to replace these with, the old incandescents is what we have there. We're going to replace those with some LEDs. Last longer, less electricity, and more efficient. And then, of course, the prep project. And this is something I'll just try to touch on real quickly. I just left the Oklahoma City Chambers State of Aerospace luncheon, and Kratos was one of the keynote speaker at that event. I had a great picture of Steve Finley, their president, speaking with the fire jet sitting on the launcher at Burns Flat, and he referenced Burns Flat several times in his remarks. But I'd hoped to be able to load it on this slideshow before the meeting started, but I didn't get a chance. But that's a picture from August of 2021 at the bottom of the same fire jet or a similar fire jet sitting on the launcher at Burns Flat. But they were very excited about the capabilities of being able to add this local aerospace technology detect and avoidance capability at our facility. And visiting with them and ODAA, who we're going to work with to select this technology, we've heard from a number of companies that if we can get something like this here in Oklahoma, which will be a mobile system that we can move to the Choctaw Nation or to Tulsa or to Stillwater or to Fort Sill, there's a lot of companies that'll be very interested in coming to Oklahoma to do their testing and development, and having that capability, which gives FAA assurance, gives the companies assurance. This is going to be a win-win for Oklahoma. Staff update. I'll take this real quick opportunity. I brought with of course, you guys know JW. He's been with us for just about as long as he started, just about 2 months after I did, or maybe a month after I did. He's been a great asset to us, and he's taking a lot of training and certifications to get himself ready. We know that Kim has already expressed that she's going to retire at some point, so he's learning from all her wisdom, and she's teaching him everything that she knows. And then at some point, or very soon actually, we're going to be putting a notice out to find somebody to replace JW, or somebody to start taking up his role. And so also, and you've met him when we were first preparing to hire him back in July of last year, Joe Callahan. I brought with us here today. Joe retired to Oklahoma after 2 decades plus working in airports. He's worked at a Part 139 commercial airport, also worked at a GA airport that had drone capability. So he brings a wealth of experience. He's an ACE, which is an airport certified employee. And just this last month, OSIDA is a member of the Oklahoma Airport Operators Association. They do continuing education for their members. And Joe, and we both started the courses together. I have been so busy I wasn't able to complete it, but Joe did, and he's now a certified airport professional to the OAOA. And so that's another credential he can add to his capabilities.
Okay. Well, let's just say congratulations, Joe. Thank you. Yes.
And our facilities crew, that's a 4-man team. They have just, 3 of them, one of them already had it, but the other 3 just returned from doing certification courses. It was about a week-long course, at least more than 2 days of several hours to get their DEQ Part D or Group D certification for water and wastewater treatment certification, so they know what they're doing when they're working with our equipment, so that they know how to handle situations, and they are now certified by the state. So everybody on staff is getting training and continuing to get training to be able to stay on top of things. So very excited about that.
Craig, may I just say, I think that is increasingly important given the expansion of the activities out there, the opportunities that are coming your way. So really that kind of development of the team out there is excellent and necessary. So thank you all very much for pursuing that.
Absolutely. And a little bit on the business activities, and Gabe touched on this a little bit. This was a few pictures from the Space Symposium that we had. That's our booth in the background. It was a 10 by 10. This is our 4th year to do Space Symposium. It's an expensive show, but more than 12,000 people were in attendance at this year's show. And as Gabe alluded, we made an incredibly big splash this year, hosting a breakfast featuring former NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine at a Space Symposium conference. Drew a lot of attention. It was standing room only. We only had 100 seats available, and there were folks that were still scrambling to try to get to that show. The picture on the right, that is a post that it was made on our LinkedIn account. On the left is Pam Underwood. She's the FAA Director of Spaceports. And of course, that's our Lieutenant Governor on the right, just moments before the breakfast started. That's a picture of, on the left is our former chair and board member Bailey Siegfried, Administrator Bridenstine, Lieutenant Governor, and the other participants in our booth. This year we had 5 others participate in the booth: the Oklahoma Department of Commerce, Frontier Electronic Systems, SimStar, and
Infinite Composites.
the Infinite Composites. Thank you, because I'm gonna, and then Ross Group.
Ross Group.
Ross Group. Thank you. When I start naming them, you know, there's that angst of I hope I remember everybody. These are some other posts that we had. That's the sign that we had. There's a few pictures there, kind of small, but we had a panel that included some great speakers, and then of course the pan from the back of the room, and some other shots from the show. That's again on our LinkedIn account, and then
Who's making these posts?
I am.
Oh, very nicely done.
Thank you very much. And then on the right, this is kind of exciting. Something we've been trying to shepherd and foster out at the spaceport. SWASU, Southwest Oklahoma State University, is located just about 35 minutes down the road from us. They've got a rocketry team that's actually a national award winner. They typically go maybe to Sayre, but often to Kansas to do their launches. I had many visits with Dr. Trail, their physics director and their coach of their rocketry team. I said, why not do something out here? And so they are part of the Oklahoma Triple E Rocketry Association, and they got their group together and basically connected with all the other universities that have rocketry teams in the state and invited them out to the spaceport just last month. And they told us we may have 7, maybe 10 people. We had more than 20 show up and do a series of launches at the spaceport. So it's fun to do some rocketry out there. These are small rockets. They I think the highest went up 5,000 feet. But they were a couple of them were multi-stage, 2-stage, and then I think OU even had a 3-stage rocket that they launched up there. So fortunately, weather was good, and they all came down. We did it from the, if you're familiar, it's the old taxiway on the west side that leads up to the berm. So there's a big 250 or 300 square foot concrete circle out there, and that the Highway Patrol uses. And so they launched from that facility and were able to recover pretty much within walking distance of that site. So really exciting in getting young people to talk about rocketry and STEM and encourage them and not having to drive all the way to Kansas to do their launches. And I know I put these pictures in here for you, Director Henry, because I know you love seeing these buildings.
I do.
These buildings you won't have to see anymore because the demo projects are progressing quite well. This is the building that's just south of our maintenance building. On the top, that's what it looked like probably about a month ago, and that's what it looked like Thursday or maybe Friday. You can still see the cornerstone there with the building number still on it, and it's probably gone today. What it looked like today, it's pretty close to it. So I'll go through these. That's what it used to look like on the inside. That's the building that was between the hangars. That's before demolition. That's what the doggone thing looked like. It's just been falling apart for the last 40 years, 50 years, and so we moved to have that demolished and raised. See, it's gone. That was
Wow.
I wanted to show you a dirt pile, and you'll never see this picture again. That was the building that we laughingly laughed at because it's made of asbestos. It was an old fuel building. It's gone. And of course, the teams had to come out and have the demolition crew had to have them abated and removed all the ACM from these buildings before any of the demolition occurred. So there's nothing. We didn't bury anything in the soil. That's going to be a nightmare later. Here's some things we're looking at going forward. These are latrines that are back behind some of the hangars, and so we're looking at what it would take to have those removed. They serve no purpose. I don't think you can get into them any longer, and they certainly don't have any useful facilities. That's a debris pile that we've had contracted to have removed. That's actually inside the airport fence on the very far south end. You can see it from the road, but not much longer. I'll take a picture of it when we're done. And then this is another, goodness gracious, these light poles, there's no copper in them. There's no wiring, you can't use them. And one of them, maybe it's that first one, maybe the third one, it's been bent by the wind. So that's all they are obstacles and debris waiting to collect somewhere. So that's another project. We've asked some demolition crews to give us some prices on having those removed. I've got a great story about those if you want to hear it afterward. That's this is something that came up this last week in our budget meetings. We've only encumbered about $500,000 of our prep money, so that leaves us about $27 million still. The legislature is at that budget time of the year that they're starting to look around for funds. We were told when we got this money, and it was put into an OMES revolving fund account for us, that there was no time limit to have that money spent. We'd kind of generally use the ARPA deadline of December of 26 as our general guideline of when to spend that. There's some challenges to that now that maybe they have to be expended by March of next year. And so that's something the legislature is currently working on. And there was a bill to extend that, but that bill died 2 weeks ago, which really put an urgency to the situation, and probably one of the reasons why I've had to go to the Capitol a few times this last week to talk about these funds. But they certainly look up and they see that $26 million figure, and they were asking me questions of, what is your plan to spend this? Well, I've got a plan. I'm waiting on engineering, and as soon as I get the engineering and the scope of work put together, I can light the fuse and get the contractors on site, and we'll knock out a good portion of that money. But that's not what they're seeing at the Capitol right now. So there's some challenges with this. Don't know what's going to happen there.
So Craig, do you have any kind of a timeline for approval of the engineering and all of that? Just thinking if there were some type of a schedule, just a graphic representation might be helpful, just so that legislators say, oh, okay, I see you're in this phase and here's phase 2. And
That would be really helpful. And as I told them at the hearings, as soon as humanly possible. I had no idea it would take this long to, what, 2 year and a half to get I think we're at the 60% scope of work from Delta. Where are we now? Maybe 80% at this point. These are figures I'd hoped to have last summer, but some changeover at that company and of course some other setbacks have set us back. But that doesn't sell.
Right.
But it apparently engineering on pavement takes a lot longer than I think it would. But as I told him, I would like to have had this done in pavement being broken up and replaced 8 or 9 months ago.
But when do they expect to be at a point where you can
So on the pavement,
bring it home?
So Delta is telling us that they expect that they'll be at the 90% level very soon, like by this month, and they hope to have be able to put the bids out for bid July, maybe. I'm scared to say that date because it never falls when I hope it will. But that's what we're kind of hearing right now, is that maybe we can start putting some RFPs or Qs out for getting the contractors on site. We know that the large aircraft manufacturer will come back out to do testing currently.
Do they understand the urgency?
The engineers, yes.
How do you know?
We've expressed that to them. I've told them that I'm being looked at because of that money still sitting in that pot. And I said I need these figures so I know how much I can spend on the electronics portion of the project as well. So.
And what are they doing about this? Are they redoubling their efforts? What are they doing?
So what they do, and this is again where Oklahoma Department of Aerospace and Aeronautics is our agent on this. So they stand between us and the engineers. So we can express to the engineers here, this is what we'd like to do. Engineers come back and they share that information with ODAA and their engineering team. So they review it and then they give it to us. So we're in the line of communication to say we need this done. ODAA understands, and they're in a similar situation too, because they want to see this project completed. But it's been expressed, but.
I think we're just wondering if there's anything we can do to help expedite or raise the priority level with the engineering group. Would that be fair?
I'll visit with ODA and an engineering firm and find out if there's anything we can do and what that would look like, so I can give specifics.
And
Was it-
the RFQ isn't going to just jump off the page. What are we doing to develop the RFQ so we don't have to wait another 60 days for an RFQ to develop?
Once Delta has their 90%, or actually when they have the completed scope of work, then ODAA will work with us and Delta to create the proposal that will go out for all the firms.
Didn't you say we were at 80%?
We've not seen the 90 yet, but we're told that it's close.
Well, it seems to me you could get a running start
I'm
based
not
on what you have right now.
If that's possible, we'll certainly look to do that. State processes will require that probably every T is crossed and I is dotted on the proposal, so they know exactly
Yeah,
what
blah,
they're
blah,
taking for.
blah, but in the meantime, you could get a running start and get your proposal to your request for quote to a 60%.
Right,
And
right,
then-
just like a draft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could get a draft RFQ based on what you have today.
I'll ask if that's if that's acceptable to the state. Because it goes, what it does, it goes on a statewide bidding contract list. So we don't have that capability as OSIDA itself. It goes on to a project list that all contractors look at.
But you,
So
you
they'll look
won't-
at it and
You
see.
won't put a draft out there anyway. But what I'm saying is get the work done so that you
When
don't
it's
have to
time to-
wait as long after you get your 90% or whatever it is you need.
Okay. Okay.
Does the Delta contract not come with like a deadline to have this information to us? Or is it just, hey, whenever you get this, it could be 3 years? Like, there's not a timeline in there?
I'm sure there probably might have been initially. I'm not sure if there's anything that,
Initially there was, but because ODA pulled back the big project and left them only with the paving project, I'm not sure where that's at right now.
so they know the situation. They know that we need this done. They know that, and we've got another engineering firm that's going to be the general contractor over all the projects. So they're all working together such that we can shepherd the pavement project and the electronics portion at the same time, so they're both on the runway at the same time. So we still have to do the electronics portion of the project as well. So it's getting all those pointing in the same direction and happening at the same pace. So, Chair or Board Member Gary, we'd love to have you
If
participate
you're
in
also
this.
going to be waiting for an electronics portion of the effort, when's that going to be due?
We're not waiting.
We're gonna start the paving, we can start the paving project in other areas of the airport. We're gonna wait to do the work for the runway at the same time that the electrical project comes on board, so they're done simultaneously at the same time. Then we only have one runway closure instead of two separate ones. But there's plenty of other work around the airport that the paving project can start on. Delta's putting together all the bid documents. They're finishing up the engineering design of the project. That has to go to ODA for approval, and as soon as ODAA approves that, they can submit the project out to bid. And that will take about a month. It'll be out to bid, receive it, select the contractors. One of the biggest challenges right now is all the pavement on the airport. You know, we got a 2.5 mile runway, all the apron space, all the taxiways. Is when they started designing this, they had about a 700-day work schedule. Well, that's not going to work really for us. So we're asking them to look at if we can bid out multiple pieces of that to multiple contractors, so we can have multiple crews on the airport working at the same time, and the project will get cut down to hopefully under a year. So that's the challenge we're facing right now is that portion of how do we bid that out to multiple contractors.
And the
Well,
challenge.
The challenge you're facing right now is you're about to lose the money.
So we just found out.
Yeah, we just found out what, Tuesday? Yesterday?
3
Monday?
days ago,
Monday,
we were working
Tuesday?
on that money would, as all of our revolving accounts, the money we can keep, it just rolls over, we don't lose it. Expected the same thing with the prep funds, and now there's the question of, is it in a revolving account, or could it go away in March?
Okay.
Yeah, there's certainly an urgency to it. And then like I said, we could work on other projects, maybe not the main runway. We can do the taxiways or the pier, the place in front of the hangars. So we can put contractors on those pieces of pavement while we wait for, and again, the large aerospace manufacturer will come back in late August probably. They'll need access to that main runway, so we want to make sure that we're not doing work on that while they're doing testing on their large aircraft. And so that's a significant opportunity for us, and we don't want to chase them away. And we want to try to coordinate their visit with the pavement project as well. So, all right, that concludes that portion.
All right. Thank you very much. Any further questions for Executive Director Smith? Okay. Well, then we shall move on to our next agenda item, This is a consideration for approval. Craig has, or the staff there have recognized a need for an excavator.
And
Is
this
correct?
is an excavator.
Can you talk about the need that you have? for this place?
Absolutely. An excavator gives us another tool in our toolbox. The capabilities of a device like this are meaningful in that it certainly, we've got a large backhoe, which takes a sledgehammer toward every project that it approaches. This is a more precise digger, and there's one instance we've got a pipe on a golf course that we need to fix. If we take the big backhoe out there, it's going to leave some serious marks. This is more genteel and is able to get to those kinds of things. It's also pretty capable of being moving riprap and positioning it in places in drainage areas, doing small drainage cuts. I think I shared with you we had a hangar last year that kept flooding in front of it. We were able to do we had to actually rent one of these to be able to dig the trench, to be able to drain the water off the apron to get it from in front of that hangar. So lots of projects like that around and just digging up any water pipe. If a tenant has wants to add water to their system, we currently have to go lease one of these to be able to dig it up. So if there's some small project along those lines, we can add this as well. Ours that we're looking at will also have a thumb in addition to the bucket on the front, so it can grasp things. So the advantage of that is we can pick up lots of debris, fallen trees, tree branches. We can take trees down with it. If you've been through the site recently, there's a lot of dead trees and certainly a lot of damaged branches. This device will help us in that regard as well. Let's see.
So who is your operator of?
Yeah, we've
this
got
type of
our facilities team.
Okay.
Four of them. Have
And
the
they have
capability.
whatever certifications might be required to do so.
Absolutely.
Yes.
If not, we can get them.
Yes.
They're eager to get them. They love to get these, but yeah,
So
we've
we're
got two
confident-
operators for sure right now. I'm sorry, go ahead, Director.
We're confident we have enough projects to justify purchasing this rather than renting,
Yes, sir.
because that comes with maintenance and.
Well, that's the great thing about the statewide project. These things, if you buy them new, they're about $90,000 on the statewide contract. We're able to get this one, the one we want, for under $65,000. And it'll come with the warranties and all the things that all the upkeep. The risk is if we were to buy one used or buy it on a secondary market, we wouldn't have that advantage of being able to see what's been done to that device for the last 15 or 20,000 hours that it's been operating. This will be a new one that we can keep in our quiver for quite a while, and it will get used pretty frequently. I wish we'd put together some figures on how many times we've had to lease one since I've been there, but this was something we bought a telehandler, which is it's a forklift device that it's able to go about 40 feet up in the air. We bought one of those last winter, and there's not been a week go by that we've not utilized it. And the crew, I said, hey, what do you guys need? And in unison, the excavator was the thing they said they needed the most. So it will get a lot of use. And like I say, all the different things. Let's see, I made a small list here. Quickly repair leaks, move in place, riprap, dig drainage paths, remove dead trees and limbs, make small digs to hook up water for tenants. And we can add other implements to it as well. I was talking to Dan earlier. He said there's a capability. You can add a box blade to it or a grader, so we can utilize it for a number of different things. So it's an adaptable piece of equipment. It's not specifically just for digging.
And how much is this piece of equipment?
Like I say, these are priced brand new
90.
or 90. We found one that was under 65. I'm going to ask, my request to the board is that you give me spending approval to spend no more than $65,000. We can get it for less than that, but I'm asking for up to 65 just in case there's.
So how many people do you have right now that are currently qualified to operate this?
Two. Yeah. It's our facilities manager and our management lead, or our facilities lead. And certification on these is probably conveniently across the street at Western Tech. I bet they've got a course over there that, if need be, we could get them certified on something like this if we need to add more to it.
Right. Is there a motion, or is anyone, or do I make the motion?
I move we approve it.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So Craig, all the rental you've done of an excavator till now was a short-term, couple of day rental.
Yes, sir.
Have you explored a long-term rent with Warren Cat for like a
Like we did the
12-month
tractors?
rental rather than actually owning this?
I'd be glad to do that, absolutely.
Because I know they're handy. It's like anything else you get, you don't know how you lived without one. But Warren Cat is in the business of doing long-term rental on industrial equipment. And I still think it could be a cheaper alternative than ownership.
That's a great idea. It worked with the tractors.
Yeah.
Let's
And
take a look at
I'm gonna
it.
pursue that angle too, see if that
Okay.
same deal carries over to industrial equipment.
That's a terrific idea. That's why I bring it to the board.
Okay, so let's table this issue, this discussion, and we can readdress it at the next board meeting or at whatever time you have information about that.
Okay.
Okay? Yeah.
When is this statewide thing due?
They're always on. Statewide is basically gives you a list of vendors, and then you
Oh, okay.
contact each vendor.
And so it's
they're-
not like you guys have to make a decision this week?
I don't.
Okay.
Contract is open for quite a while.
All right, and then I just request when you come back with information to bring those numbers on what we've had to use before,
Okay.
how much money we've had to spend on it.
Great, thank you. Okay, let's move on to our next item, and this would be item number 9. Request from Premium Aerospace Center emergency funding for demolition of a damaged water pipe and installation of shutoff valves.
All right. So one of our tenants is Premium Aerospace Center. They're in the midst of a major multi-million-dollar hangar renovation project on Hangar 234. If you've been out there, that was the orange one that we had. I think I've shown you pictures that all the skin has been taken off of it now, and so they are in the process of demoing the foundation around that to be able to expand the footprint of that hangar and be able to, as they rebuild it, the goal is to accommodate 767 and 737 size aircraft inside the hangar. So they're going to have to expand the footprint of that. So as part of their project, they were demoing some pavement around the hangar. The contractor hit and broke a water line. And you know that our system is a closed loop system, so when a break happens in one location, we have to shut it off, and it shuts off the water to the entire industrial park, which includes the restaurant, golf course, Canadian Valley, or Western Tech Center, all the tenants in the park. And so it was down for about 18 hours, I think, on this particular instance. It was cauterized and fixed, or at least allowed to continue working again. And so the demo work on the hangar foundation is paused while the PAC engineers and their contractor await the delivery of 2 shutoff valves. So our project with Centergy is also going to add shutoff valves throughout the park. We noted to them that we're going to continue to do development in the park. A closed loop system is not conducive to that. Said we want to be able to put shutoff valves throughout the park so that if a section of the park is going to get some development, we build a new building there, we can turn the water off to those areas and be able to do the infrastructure work on that area without adjusting or without stopping the water works for everybody else in the system. So we're already going to put shutoff valves into our system, but that project won't start until this summer. And so in the meantime, there's the request that Premium has asked that if they can put the shutoff valves on each side of their project so that something should happen, they can quickly shut the system off without stopping the water system to the entire industrial park. So they've delivered to us a proposal. It's in front of you that includes the delivery of 2 shutoff valves and a specialty crew from Texas coming to install them. And once these valves have been placed, PAC can continue the demolition project without concerns of affecting the water in the park and the airport again as they continue to simply activate one of the shutoff valves or both of the shutoff valves to isolate any major break. And again, our project has shutoff valves included into it, but that doesn't begin till this summer. And in the meantime, this project is being halted. OSIDA will see the benefit in the immediate purchase and installation of this equipment at this location, as it does provide shut-off capability should another break occur, and that therefore it's a justifiable expenditure, and we can certainly do that, because we've shared this with our Synergy folks. They said that's not probably where we would have put shut-off valves, but it's not going to hurt our plans, and we can accommodate the continuation of our project with those shut-off valves in place. And the fact the project is urgent. Demolition cannot continue until the valves are installed, preventing the traditional lengthy bid and selection process. I'm coming to you with the emergency situation to allow OSIDA, upon board consideration and approval, to utilize emergency process that we've identified through the state that allows us to use airport account funds, since the hangar is on the airport, for a one-time payment to PAC's contractor for the broken pipe demolition, valve purchase and installation, and the labor.
And what is the total cost?
All right, I did actually do the math on this, General. So what we've got, this is the purchase of the valves. This is the subcontractor. This is Midwest Wrecking. They're providing the labor on this. And this is Shellback, which is the contractor that is overseeing, the general contractor that's overseeing the project. So the total price, if you add the two subcontracts up and the what is it, the OH&P contractor fee, the total price is $63,084.14.
Okay. So Shellback incorporates these two. Okay.
That's how I understand it, Mike.
Is that?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, it's very exciting to be having a construction project going on and for there to be some upgrading and enhancements occurring. So that's really positive. We appreciate that. All right. Any questions or thoughts from our board on this proposal?
I move for approval. Second.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, can we take a vote, please?
Ms. Gary,
Aye.
Mr. Gillette,
Aye.
Mr. Schultz,
Aye.
Chairwoman Rolfe,
Aye.
and Mr. Henry.
Yes.
Great.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. We will move on to item number 10, the consideration for approval, purchase of lighted signs and trailers for runway closure and safety purposes.
So this is another need that we have. These can be wheeled out onto the runway if there's any kind of project taking place on the runway or activities taking place near a runway. Actually, in a couple of weeks, we're going to have the Sports Car Club of America come and they return again to do their time testing trials on the south end of the apron. The south end of the apron is about 200 feet away from an active runway. Something like this would be utilized. We'd put this on the small runway to ensure that no pilot, since the tower will be closed on the weekend, that no pilot would try to land on the small runway. It'll also work for us when we do the main project on the main runway. In the past, contractors have charged us for the acquisition of a lighted X, and it was in the multi-$1,000 range just to rent it, and then they take it away when the project's done. This is a request that we're bringing to actually purchase our own lighted X's so that we can wheel them out. And these are diesel powered and battery backup, so it will run for, I think, 5 days is at least one of the projects or one of the devices. And then the battery power will go for at least another 24 hours. So this is a pretty robust one. There's a number of bulbs on this. There's some other versions that have maybe 9 bulbs on it. That's a big runway. It's a big wide runway. Something with the small bulbs and small fitting would work for a 75-foot runway, but for a 300-foot runway, we need one that would be as robust and brilliant as this. These can have trailer hitches on them, so we can hook them up behind our truck, and actually they can double hitch, so we can pull both of them at the same time, drop one off, zip to the other end of the runway, and hook the other one up there as well. And this will save us money when we do our large contract, General, that this is a provision that the contractor won't come back to us and say, we need to charge you $25,000 to put a lighted X on your runways, and then we're gonna take it when we leave. We get to keep these.
Is
So-
that how much they charged us? $25,000? What was the actual number?
What was it last time? It was at least 15,000. I think last time was the figure I remember. It may have been more on the more recent project. I can get those figures for you and,
And
and
what is
show
this
you.
costing?
These together, we've looked at 4 different proposals, and there's 2 of them that come with each proposal. So we can get both of them for under $60,000, and then they would be ours.
60.
60. Yeah.
So it's not just during big projects like the one coming up that we need to use them. It's other times too, when next week we're closing the runway for 2 days to do runway repairs, our maintenance crew. You want lighted X's on each end of the runway for their safety. We have stuff where we have, if there's repairs to be done to that runway on the weekends when the control tower's closed, there's nobody guarding the, keeping a plane from landing other than me issuing a NOTAM. Not all pilots check the NOTAMs. These will prevent our crew from getting, hopefully from getting hit by a plane. Also, if there's a disabled plane on the runway that we can't get it off the runway, it's gonna stay on the runway overnight, we can put these out to keep another plane from landing on that. Because, it's 2.5 mile runway. You're not gonna see something necessarily halfway down the runway. I'm sure you guys remember in the last year, there was an airport worker killed here in Oklahoma because a plane hit them on the runway. They were doing work beside the runway. These will hopefully help prevent that.
I'm surprised we don't have them already.
Yeah, bigger airports, it's common. My last airport, we had 4 of them. We had 4 runways, so. But if next week, if we wanted to go out and rent these, you can't go out and rent these in Elk City or in Altus. Normal rental places don't rent these. There's specialized equipment. When an electrical contractor does a big project on the airport, they go out and buy it, and then they turn around and charge us, and they keep it for their next project. So these are going to last years and years and years through multiple projects. Through every time we need to close the runway, we can use it. It's just a big safety factor for us.
Thank you for that information.
And we've identified no fewer than 4, and certainly look at some others if you have some other resources. These aren't, as Joe said, these aren't contractors that we can go on the statewide contract and find. There's no contractor in the state that has these, so we've looked all over the United States for these. The 4 that we've looked at all have trailers, diesel generators, battery backup, big and sturdy enough. Some of the smaller ones that we've looked at, if you know what Western Oklahoma wind, they wouldn't last very long at the end of one of those runways. So these are heavy and sturdy enough to be able to survive that, and would save us the cost plus that the contractor was going to give us when they do the project later this summer.
Yeah.
So my request would be if I could get approval for funding of no more than $60,000 to be able to purchase 2 lighted X generator carts for the runways for the airport.
Do we have a motion as such?
I move we give him authority to buy anything up to $60,000.
And do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Okay, and let's take a vote.
Ms. Gary,
No.
Mr. Gillette,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz,
Yes.
Chairwoman Rolls,
Yes.
and Mr. Henry.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, on to 11. We're getting close. Okay, the next topic is a request from the executive director to have approval for emergency expenditures that exceed his current spending authority level, which is $50,000.
So let me paint a picture for you. We started investigating this when we were approached by Premium about their emergency situation. What do we do? And certainly as we watch the storms as they've taken place throughout Oklahoma, they do it all the time. Nothing new there, but whether it be an ice storm, whether it be a windstorm, whatever the situation may be, what if we have some kind of situation that requires urgent attention and we've got to address it quickly. So damages can occur from a number of sources. We're seeking to get ahead of some of these situations to quickly remedy the challenges. Today, we'd have to call a special meeting of the board. That's at least 24 hours posting, and then to be able to get everybody on everybody's schedule to come to a specific location, whether it's Oklahoma City or Altus or Burns Flat or wherever it may be, to be able to get at least four board members to show up to hear an emergency provision. And then to talk about maybe we've got a situation with a dangerously damaged hangar or a building, replacing a roof system, or address significant damage, hits our runway. Something major happens to the pavement out there, maybe something to our electrical system, the ILS or something like that, and that takes that out, and that prevents the Air Force from doing any operations out there or any of our other tenants to do anything out there. What can we do in a short period of time to be able to quickly address that? And so the request I'm asking the board to consider and approve would be a provision that would allow a process to approve an emergency expenditure according to the state's Risk Management Office determination of an emergency, up to $250,000 by a vote of the executive committee. And I'm willing to listen to another figure if you want to discuss another figure. I know that's a tall amount, and certainly that's a lot of trust that you're putting into 4 people. But we want to be able to act quickly and I don't foresee this happening, but I didn't foresee the situation that was brought to us earlier as well. So unfortunately, that was within a quick period of time that we could actually have the board meet and address the situation that Premium brought to us. But what would happen if something major happened and we've got to address it quickly and I can't get 4 of you together?
Well, and I think it's a valid concern given the tornadic activity we've seen recently in Oklahoma. And I think a special meeting, maybe it's 48 hours notice. Is that
Is it
right?
48?
I think it's
You may be
48
right.
for a
Okay.
special meeting.
I'll
So
add that to my- that's
that
a-
really does,
That's a good point.
That's not scheduled.
yeah.
An unscheduled meeting.
Now,
Yeah.
that's good, okay.
Yes. So you bring up a good point. I'd be interested. I think having the executive committee also, or some, I think some group other than just you making the call would be smart and appropriate to do. So in that regard,
How do we then ensure that it gets brought back to the full board once
Yeah.
it's all said and done?
Let me add that to the my motion then as well, because that's a valid point. I'd certainly want full board
yes.
knowledge of the opportunity or of the situation, and certainly I don't know if it would help after the fact to be able to approve it, but certainly to have it on public record that, hey, this situation occurred, the executive committee met, is allowable to talk about the situation and came to the concurrence that, hey, this is an emergency expenditure. We give you authority to repair this situation or remedy this situation, and then we'll go back at the next regular board meeting and get full board approval.
Is there money in the budget for that?
There is, depending on which.
Is it
And
for an emergency? Do we need to make a line item for that?
that's a Jay question.
As I understand it, I mean, I'm still pretty green, but I don't think that's typically, emergency funds aren't a thing. That's why emergency purchase provisions are in place for the director to be able to. So I think historically, OSIDA has always just left some cushion in the budget for emergency situations, but never designated a specific emergency fund.
Can you notify the whole board, like with an email, hey, this happened, and the executive committee is meeting tomorrow, right? Is that legal, and then the executive committee meets?
Yes, and I
Right,
can, I
that's,
can
then
copy.
it's not just called the executive committee, and they're the only ones that know that something happened.
The entire board can't make that decision, so that's why it would go to the committee, but I think Craig could notify
No.
each individual board member.
That something happened, right? Not for approval,
Yeah,
right.
just
For situational
email goes
awareness.
out, this happened, the executive committee's meeting tomorrow, just so you know, and then the next day, the executive, I think that would meet the intent of what you're
Sure.
saying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would make sense. I think that's a good
so,
plan.
yeah, pending that the entire board was notified of the emergency, then the executive committee could meet.
Yes, I think that makes sense. And is $250,000 you'd be hard pressed to spend $250,000 in like that, right?
Right, I would think that, that at least get me started
No.
if it's a major.
No?
Yeah.
Okay.
That-
Well, I was just wondering, if that's a good limit for us to set it, if that's too high, if that's,
I'm willing to hear what the board, I actually had 300 in there first.
okay.
We already got 50.
Yeah, and you already have a $50,000 threshold, so would this be over and above the 50? So it would be 50 plus 250, so now you really would be 3.
I didn't see it that way,
No, I
but,
don't
That'd be per occurrence, I would think.
Yeah,
Okay.
for occurrence. I'd make a motion to approve that pending board notification of an emergency that the executive committee can meet up to $250,000.
I'll second that.
Ms. Scurry,
Aye.
Mr. Gillette,
Aye.
Mr. Schultz,
Aye.
Chairwoman Rolls,
Aye,
and Mr. Henry.
Yes.
perfect.
thank you.
All right. Well, the next item on our agenda, today is General Gillette's last meeting here with us as a member of the OSIDA board. And very sad to be seeing you go. And I think the board, we just wanted to take a moment and recognize his tremendous service to the board. You have been a backbone. You have helped accomplish a lot. You have helped drive strategy. You are, when I have a question, you're always a rational.
My goodness. Holy cow.
You're a voice of rationality in the whole process, and I think we have all come to depend on you very much as an esteemed colleague, a trusted board member, and certainly a friend.
Well, thank you all. I'm surprised, I'm not, it's been an interesting journey. We've gone from figuring out how to mow the grass and keep water in the pipes to now actually looking at a statewide strategy that looks like it may be implemented to develop space as a real industry in Oklahoma. So I'm proud to have served with all of you. I value your capabilities. Everybody seems to have a unique capability that adds something to the group. So I wish you all well, and I'll look with. I'll be interested to see how this plays out, and envy you having a role in it. So thank you all.
Thank you. Well, you have certainly had a significant role, and we would not be at this place without your work. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Let me list all the ways that
No,
General.
don't do that. Please. Am I supposed to open this?
Well, when I saw this on there, I was hoping you were just gonna get the present but stay.
Right?
I was like, okay, I can see him getting the present.
Well, this is
You will
something
be
that when
missed.
you use it, you can think about us because
Okay.
it will keep you
All right.
looking out for it.
I'll do that.
I like the wrapping paper too.
He color coordinated.
Yeah.
Make sure you wear
Oh,
that green
it's all
shirt.
taped up.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
I have to scoot, so y'all can probably adjourn without me. But
Yeah,
thank
well,
you
we
so
have one
much.
more item and then,
Oh, we do.
well, no, you're good. If you need to go, I
I
know
got-
you had to go.
I got 5 minutes.
You do? Okay. Well, then we'll all get to shake your hand before you leave too. But I wanted to make sure we had time to get that in, so. Okay, last item, number 13, any new business which is any matter not known about or which could not have been known reasonably, which could not have been reasonably foreseen 24 hours before when we posted the agenda. Any, okay. 14, any board member comments? Okay, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All right,
Thank you.
and do we
All
need
right,
to vote?
Ms. Gurry,
Aye.
Mr. Gillette,
Aye.
Mr. Schultz,
Aye.
Chairwoman Rolls,
Aye.
and Mr. Henry.
Yes.
All right, we are adjourned.